Well, it's 25 years ago that my daughter Angela was born. My wife and I were happily expecting our second child. Due to an accident at birth, though, unfortunately, it left her very frail. There was major complications at birth. She lost a lot of blood and oxygen. And my wife were put in a circumstance where we now had to consider how would we get the nursing assistance and medical care to be able to either care for her at home or to find some place that can help us in assisting in her care. It didn't take long to understand that the supports that were necessary to take care of her home were extremely difficult. She was not able to eat on her own. She wasn't able to swallow. We ended up having to be and setting her up for what was initially a nasal feeding tube, and then she ended up getting a button G tube so she could be fed through a tube directly to her stomach. Oxygen-wise, she was able to not necessarily be on a trach or ventilator, but she was very frail and needed to have oxygen often put by her under her nose in a mask. She would often turn blue. It was very difficult. She had many seizures, uncontrolled seizures, and she needed a constant level of supervision that, as a basic family that never had that kind of medical background, my wife and I, we had no idea. And sometimes we would watch some of the professionals around her, and we saw that even they struggled to an extent. This was kind of a new survivors, as the parents back then were referring to the kids, and we weren't sure, how to take that. And we were seeing other parents in the hospital, some of the kids that were ventilator dependent. We were seeing other children that had accidents or had debilitating diseases. And they were kind of in that same boat where they weren't able to eat on their own. They needed to have, in some cases, IV therapies. The complications medically and supervision that was needed for them was so above and beyond what the average parent would have ever considered necessary in caring for their own children. And then we also realized that how many kids were living in the hospital, and some kids living very far away in other states, because New York had no alternatives for parents. And that's where our efforts began. Obviously, the efforts were to really try to find the best environment for our daughter. She only lived a little over a year, and in that year, I had met many families that also needed help. And we knew we couldn't stop at that point, and we knew we had to sit there and come up with a way, because we had learned that New York State hadn't even looked into the aspect of where kids could live, or some of the supports at home that had started but were nowhere near where they needed to be. It didn't take long for us to learn that the two main offices within New York State, the Department of Health and Department of Social Services, and actually the Office of Disabilities, nobody was really looking into this and having plans as far as what to do. I was able to find someone in Albany that had just did a study about how the kids were getting stuck in the hospital at such an exorbitant cost to New York State and the federal government. But there was no solutions, there was no direction, there was no tracking being done in the state. So it was hard for them to conceptualize that something like this could be missed. We were in our 6th year, where we were still stagnating, trying to figure out how to deal with building that residential alternative. What was the concept going to be? I went out of state visiting a lot of different facilities, both nursing homes, specialty homes, hospitals, and my hopes were that we would be able to make more of a home environment. And probably at the time, New York State, after the 70s, was looking to deinstitutionalize anyway. So they were very eager to say, let's look at some small models. So we did come up with a model that was more like a group home style home with the nursing supports, the medical supports that would be needed to safely care for the kids. And that would be like having oxygen systems, having suctioning, which is probably one of the most important aspects to the home, and in each room. So this way there was always that support for the kids. Assemblyman Harvey Weisenberg listened to what I was saying, and he was very taken by it, saying he will make sure he goes up to Albany, addresses this problem and issue to be able to get the funding so we no longer ship our most vulnerable children, as he said in his own words, out of New York. He just understood the travesty of it, and he felt he was going to make that change. Well, lo and behold, he did. He turned around, went up to Albany right away. When we finally got the okay that we could move forward, it was, what a great celebration. I remember each and every one of those parents writing a thank you letter to Harvey. And I remember we put it in a binder and we sent it to him. We just didn't know how to thank him enough for what he did. Because it's not only the house, but the awareness that these kids are in our community and we can't forget about them. Well, that was kind of the birth of Harvey being that king in the community for the disabled. And a perfect example of that, and instead of fundraising for his own campaign, he would sit there and have the fundraiser, but he would be giving the money to local nonprofits and organizations that he knew that were in need. We honored Harvey and I was on the dais. I wouldn't let him on purpose get to the mic yet. So I had him stand in front of me under the dais with his wife, Ellen, just a beautiful person too. And when I discussed Harvey, that you couldn't hear a sound in this huge conference room with over 600 people, and the appreciation, especially coming off on how he single-handedly stopped the major $90 million cut to the disabled across Long Island. Just an amazing feat. So when I was talking about Harvey, I said, you know what? We've learned how Harvey has a son that's disabled. And he's a father of disabled. But then I made mention, he's been the father of Long Island, of the disabled. And I said, taking it even a step further, what he's done for New York State, he's really the father of disabled of New York State. He has been a leader, and at this point, now that he is now retiring, will be sorely missed, but never ever forgotten, because his legacy and what he's done for people will live on forever. As we sit today in Angela's house 2, which took us 5 years after the first house we had opened, he was here again. And I had come up with an idea when we did this house, as we sit here in Evelyn's room. We had a mural done, and we had Harvey on the top of the mural, almost in his classic casual, one of his outfits you would expect to see him in the summertime, his t-shirt and lifeguard shorts or whatever. And we have him high up on the mural, overlooking, kind of like down on the mural. And the reason we did that is it is symbolic of how we all look up to him. He has been our leader. And then what we did in the mural, in a cartoonish way, we have names of children playing, or names on boats or jackets, and it kind of just represents those are the kids that he's been there, to support and how he looks over the children. So symbolically, that's the way we're always going to think of him, as someone that went above and beyond, not afraid of going outside the norm or the politics of whether he should be sticking his neck out. He did it because it was the right thing to do. He was a father that understood the needs of what a parent went through. And he understood that sometimes, and most times, the parents don't have the strength and voice to be able to make change like he could. His masterful way of capturing an audience and passion speeches that he would often give that would paint the picture very clearly of the needs that parents have. He has truly been a hero and will always be a hero in my eyes, and I will always be grateful for helping to make medically frail kids known on Long Island. To think now we have 3 homes, and in the home care community, the last 2 years we've helped over 600 kids in the community, which is really just amazing. When you think of our 3rd house, 6 of the 8 kids, they were living in hospitals still and nursing homes. And to see them, it's been open a year, to see them now, whether it's the most disabled kids seeing that smile because they're comfortable and happy again, or to see some of the kids that really never had the ability to even be in a home environment, now living in a home, and you could see the comfort level. You could see it in their face, the change, and that's how you're doing the right thing. And it's not always easy to convey that to people, to believe in whether it's a mission or doing the right thing. And it didn't take Harvey a second to understand that was the right thing, and he's now paved the way for us to now show our community that these small little homes for medically frail kids is the right thing.